Welcome into the Toby Foreman show on this Friday, or whenever you might be listening into the show. We hope you are ready for some great football tonight, or on the road with the Shoemaker Grey Wolves of Midlothian, Texas. But before we get to Midlothian, let's take an exit real quick and talk about your game last week out, taking on those Chaparral Bobcats.
Yeah, man, Chaparral was really a quality opponent this year. You can tell the improvement in the team from this year to last year, or from last year to this year, and it really is going to help us with the game we have tonight at Midlothian, because they got us ready for a style of offense that we have to defend, where sometimes you don't see the ball. Even though they're slot T, wing T, Midlothian's a flex bone, and same thing. We practice without a ball, like I talked about. We gave up one big play on the rail route for the touchdown early, which I wasn't pleased with. And then they had a straight-up drive they put together. It was a couple penalties in there, but they just kicked our butts down on that drive. We had a bad defensive drive. And so, kudos to Coach Hare. I've said this all season since I've seen them the first time. I think they're a playoff team in 5A Division II. I'd be shocked if they wasn't. They got some guys on there that really gave us some problems, and I look for them to be able to do some big things in the future. But I do think that our kids played well. It was 7-7 at the end of one, and then we started. We pulled away in the second quarter, and then in the third and fourth quarter we played a lot of the backups. But kudos to Chaparral, because they really did. They wasn't intimidated by us, and they showed up ready to play. I heard Coach Hare speak after the game, and he said, that's a good football team over there talking about us, and we didn't back down. He was right, and I think it made us both better by playing that game.
Yeah, they're a lot better team than they were last year. You could see his guidance and the growth in the team for sure. But your guys getting better every year. Getting to see a lot of the backups in the ball game, that was sweet. I don't know how many different kids carried the ball. You could probably tell me 7 or 8, and I would believe that because of the different kids that I saw in there playing. And the offense and defense, with the exception of what you said, I thought played a pretty good ball game. But you're going to have those things here and there. But
yeah,
that perfect game, you got to have it, especially against a team like Midlothian, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And going back the other night, we had a bunch of sophomores that played. A bunch of them. Of course, a bunch of them got in the end zone, but there was a bunch that played. You had Brandon Brown Jr., you had Willie Thomas, you had Ty Wade, Brendan Logan, James Evans. There was a bunch of guys that really got an opportunity as sophomores to make. William Thomas. I think we had 11 sophomores that played. Jalen Payton. So like I said, the future is bright, and because we held some older guys out, the Kamari Balfours, the Marquez Cross, Gerard Hicks, Jameer Green, Jonathan Lyman. We had 5 stars that didn't play the other night. So that allowed some of those sophomores to step up and play, and I was very pleased with that, because there's no guarantees. I told our guys before the game, Chaparral doesn't know they're supposed to lose this game. They're going to show up expecting to win. We've got to take it from them. And at the end of the first quarter, it looked like we were going to be in a 4-quarter dogfight. Ended up being a 2-quarter dogfight. But, like I said, a lot of people got experience off that, and that's huge for us moving forward. As far as Midlothian goes, you don't have to play perfect, but you better play pretty good. You can't make a lot of mistakes in Midlothian. Added on top of that, now this is both teams, but it's going to be about 108 on Friday, and we're going to be on that turf. Ain't a whole lot of wind because that stadium's kind of dipped down right there, and it's a tough place to win. I've said this before. We played them in the non-district in the past, and we got up there last time, got our butts kicked pretty good, and so we don't want that to happen. So we think we have a better team this year than what we've had in the past when we face them, and they're always going to be tough because their coach is tough. He's got 2 boys of his own that start on this team. One's a quarterback, Drew Wendell, and the other is an outside linebacker, Bo Wendell. And the mentality there is tough, and that's how they play. And we've had a tough week of practice. One of our mottos for this year is get your hands dirty, and we're gonna have to get our hands dirty to win this game this week.
Yeah, and you're in trouble when you look at the roster and there's no weights or heights on them. These are some pretty big boys, aren't they?
They are. They got some big, start with number 99, Braden Smith. He's probably their best defensive player overall. He's definitely their leader. He wore 44 last year, but he's a standout in wrestling, powerlifting, and track as well as football. And, he really gave us problems last year. Inside linebacker, number 42, Nitori Burnett. He was a DN last year. He wore number 58. Really good player. He makes a lot of tackles during that extended 4-3. Those guys can play. And then they also have number 21, Roman Parman, coming back. He's one of the returning stars on their defense. Then you flip over to the offense side of the ball, and the offense is ran through, like I said, Coach's son, number 11, Drew Wendell. But number 10, Michael Garber, he's their guy. That's the running back. He played last year. He is, my grandma used to say this all the time, he's tougher than a boat arch stump. He's pretty tough, you know what I'm saying? You got to keep hitting him, and you got to gang tackle him because he's not scared. Not a very big guy, but he'll run extremely hard every time he carries the ball, and he blocks really, really well. And then, of course, number 19, their Power 5 recruit, Bryant Westco. He's one of probably about 5 Power 5 receivers that are in our district. We feel like we have some good receivers on our team, but Westco, man, he's a guy, great size, body control, he tracks the ball well. And, that he's what makes it tough to stop their run game, because you can't double him and stop the run game because they're in the flex bone, and so you kind of got to pick your poison. So we've got to do a good job in the secondary as well as up front this week.
When you go into that, do you change up your defense? Do you change up your lineup on your defense, so you go to a different lineup, or are you still going to stay with the same?
Well, we'll change it up some, not telling too much, but like last week when we play the slot T, wing T teams, you don't have corners play as much.
Right.
You play linebackers, strong safeties, free
Drop
safeties.
them back.
Yeah, and you take a corner out, at least one. Last week, there was times we didn't have corners in the game. But that's just part of it. This week we'll definitely have to have cornerbacks because they also have a young receiver, Zachary Brown, sophomore, number 9. He'll come in. When he comes in the game, they're spinning it. They're going to spin it to 9 or they're going to spin it to 19, and you've got to account for that. But when 88, the tight end's in the game, 88 is a senior. That's Cole Tompkins. When he comes in, they're more run-oriented, but they'll still throw it some. But so, like I said, you got to personnel correct with what they have and who they have in with what you have and how you match up with that.
Offensively and defensively, like you said, you held out like Hicks and those boys, some of your best players, really, to tell you the truth, out of that ball game. You're going to have them for this week. How important is that going to be for them to mesh back in with the unit and get going again?
Well, one of the key pieces, and I don't have a problem saying this, live on radio, is Jonathan Lahman got cleared, for this week, and we will ease him back in it. Lahman was a guy that he's been penciled in as a starter for the last 2 years, and then this year, and we've missed him. He hasn't had one snap up until this week, and so him not being there, the leadership he brings to the table of the receiving corps. But kudos to Dylan Keys. Kudos to Brendan Logan. Kudos to the young receivers that have stepped up and really filled in that role and that void for him, especially the Brendan Logans of the world, because, what he's done, sacrificing playing time on defense to fill in a void on offense. And, we're 2-0. We couldn't do that without team players like Brendan. He's on almost every special team. So is Dylan Keys. Those guys are the reason why the program is how it is, because they understand the importance of team over self. And, that's one thing that we preach here, and the kids buy that, and that's why we are able to do what we're able to do sometimes.
You got that first season out of the way, undefeated, going to the second season here, third season down the road. We'll talk about that later, but that second season starts against those Midlothian Panthers, man. Give me that talk. What are we going to do?
Well, the talk all week has been this. We got to go 1-0 this week. How do we do that? How do we go 1-0? Labor Day practice. It was pretty grueling, okay? We got after it, so to speak. We got after it on Tuesday. All right, we got after it a little bit on Wednesday after tutorials, but we kind of dialed it back, and then Thursday fine-tuned it, and then here we are. So we're up here in an unfamiliar territory that you've never been in, and we're going to be in a hostile environment. All right, it may or may not be their senior night. It may or may not be their homecoming. I don't know what it is, but it's a district opener, and they're going to be prepared. We've got to answer whatever bad things happen throughout this game, because there's going to be some bad things, and we've got to be fired up and fly around on every play. And if we'll do that, we'll give ourselves an opportunity to win the game.
Well, as always, wish you very good luck, and
thank you all for traveling this far. We appreciate all the fan support, and as always, go Grey Wolves.
You're watching I-14 Sports Network.